There is a truth most people do not have the courage to face directly. You will never be respected if you cannot control your emotions. No one needs to tear you down. No one needs to hate you. The moment they see you being dragged around by your own reactions, their instincts immediately step back. Not out of malice, but because they read the most primitive signal of all. This person is not stable enough to trust. You may comfort yourself with polished phrases. I'm just too sensitive. I react because I'm hurt. I just want to be understood. But Nietzsche would strip away all that spiritual makeup and call the truth by its real name. You have never learned how to command yourself. And a person who cannot command himself cannot lead anything, a conversation, a relationship, or his own life. This video is not here to teach you how to stay calm, nor to offer a few tricks to temporarily soothe your emotions. This is a journey that exposes why you will never be respected if you cannot control your emotions, from unconscious reactions, misguided repression, to the silent collapse of self-mastery that Nietzsche called the will to power. And if you dare to go to the end, you will see clearly. The first enemy you must conquer is not the world, but yourself. Number 1. Why the world despises those who lose control, even if it never says it. There is a truth few dare to name outright, yet you have felt it your entire life. The world does not respect those who lose control. The moment people see that you cannot hold yourself together, they step back. Not out of cruelty, but because you broadcast the most primal signal of all, instability. And in a world that runs on instincts older than any moral sermon, the first reflex is not compassion, but avoidance. Nietzsche would not soften this. People are not afraid of your anger. They are afraid of the inner void where you cannot keep the reins on yourself. You have already witnessed this effect, you just never named it correctly. A colleague exploding in a meeting. A friend losing control in public. A lover unraveling in an argument. The instant emotions spill beyond their command. The first thing that appears inside you is distance. Because if they cannot hold themselves, they cannot hold anything else either. Human beings build respect on competence, not on justification. And Nietzsche names the essence of this plainly: a lack of self-command. Imagine a suspension bridge stretched across a deep ravine. No matter how beautiful it looks, if you see it shaking with every gust of wind, you will not dare step onto it. Losing emotional control is the same. You may be talented, kind, decent, but if others feel that you are a shaking bridge, they will not entrust anything important to you. Unconsciously, they choose firmer ground, not a moral judgment, but a survival reflex. What makes people retreat is not the outburst itself, but the message behind it. When you lose control, you are telling the world something you do not even hear yourself. I am not stable enough to lead myself. And a person who cannot lead himself cannot lead anything, a conversation, a relationship, or a group. Nietzsche would not dilute this truth for you. Respect comes from self-mastery, not from the ability to vent anger. I once had a friend named David who worked in a media company. He was talented, creative, always bringing bold ideas the whole team needed. But David had one weakness. Under pressure, he lost emotional control. In a major meeting, when a project went wrong, he exploded, slammed his hand on the table, his voice cracking with rage. The room went silent. No one argued. But after that meeting, a quiet shift occurred. No one let David hold a central role anymore. They still liked him, still acknowledged his talent, but they no longer trusted him as a leader. A year later, David wondered why he was never given major opportunities, but the answer had already been written in the moment he lost himself. Nietzsche understood something modern people still avoid. Emotional explosions do not just make you weak, they make you predictable, and someone who is easy to read is never respected. Such a person has no mystery, no depth, no force. They appear too exposed, seen through by everyone, feared by no one. Power always begins with impenetrability, with the ability to keep others from knowing what can shake or control you. Nietzsche stated bluntly in Beyond Good and Evil, "Everything that is deep loves a mask." The more unpredictable and ungraspable a person is, the more human instinct is forced to respect them. So remember this: respect is not determined by what you feel, but by the moment you refuse to hand command over to your emotions. The world does not care about your inner life. It reads you by how you stand when touched. Every time you react instantly, rush to explain, or let the first wave carry you away, you place yourself in the position of someone being controlled. By contrast, the moment you preserve enough silence to observe, instead of being swept along, you send a completely different signal. There is order inside you. And that order, not words or goodwill, is what makes others begin to see you as an axis, not a reflex. If you have ever experienced a moment of losing yourself to emotion, or the rare moment of standing firm while everything inside wanted to collapse, share that story in the comments. Nietzsche believed that a person's truth is revealed not when things are easy, but in the moment they clearly see instinct pulling them and still choose to stand upright. Perhaps your experience will awaken someone else who is still avoiding the right to master themselves. Number 2. Control is not repression, the misunderstanding that makes people decay. And from here we step into a more subtle truth, one that causes countless people to believe they are growing stronger, while in reality they are rotting from within. Your problem does not lie only in emotional outbursts, but in your inability to distinguish the ruthless difference between repression and mastery. After being hurt by losing control once, most people swing to the opposite extreme. They lock their emotions in the dark and call it maturity. Nietzsche would show you no mercy here. He would say plainly, "This is not strength, it is self-poisoning." Modern people suffer from a dangerous confusion. They believe that silence in the face of storms is strength, while what they are actually practicing is repression. And repression never makes a person stronger. It only compresses emotions, leaves them unprocessed, and sooner or later they erupt without control. Nietzsche warned in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded. One who cannot govern himself will be ruled by his own emotions. You cannot master yourself by merely suppressing or pretending emotions do not exist." Mastery and repression are entirely different states, and if you cannot tell them apart, you will slide into weakness without realizing it. Begin with the ugliest truth. Repression is the reflex of someone afraid of himself, afraid of his emotions, afraid of their real power, afraid of losing the image of being proper in others' eyes. The repressed person masters nothing. He merely hides his impotence beneath a shell called calm. He swallows anger, compresses grief, strangles every genuine reaction, then lies to himself that this is maturity. But maturity is not fleeing from the inner world. That is merely cowardice rewarded by society. Repression keeps your mind under constant high pressure. You believe you are controlling yourself, but in reality, you are growing weaker as everything accumulates unresolved. Then, all it takes is one small remark for you to overreact. Not because that remark carries weight, but because you have repressed too much for too long to absorb any further stimulus. You do not explode because of the situation. You explode because of how long you have betrayed your own emotions. A viewer of this channel, Louise, is a brutal example of this. She worked as a manager at a tech company, always composed, always gentle, never raising her voice. Everyone saw her as a symbol of calm. But behind that shell were years of accumulated anger and injustice she dared not face. Then one day, when an employee made a minor mistake, Louise did not yell or slam the table. She simply said softly, "I don't know who I can trust anymore." And after that sentence, her hands began to shake, tears streamed down her face, and she had to leave the meeting. That moment exposed the full truth. Her calm was not strength. It was the desperate rigidity of a soul afraid to look into its own darkness. And the most ruthless part. The repressed person not only loses himself, he also loses the respect of others, just in a quieter way. Opposite repression is mastery, the art of self-command. Not locking emotions away, but understanding their nature. Not eliminating them, but directing them through your will. Mastery requires an inner clarity strong enough to observe emotions as they arise without being possessed by them. It is the ability to say, "I see anger coming. I recognize it, but I decide how it will be used." The master does not deny instinct, he turns it into directed force. Nietzsche said, "You must become master over yourself." Mastery is not becoming stone. It begins with knowing what forces live inside you and choosing to use them to build rather than destroy. One of the clearest examples is the story of Prometheus. When he stole fire from Zeus, the meaning was simple. Fire is useful only when humans know how to use it properly. Without fire, humanity cannot develop. Used carelessly, it causes destruction. But when mastered, it becomes a tool that creates real power. Emotions function the same way. If you fear them and try to block them, you exhaust yourself. If you let them dictate behavior, you lose control. Only when you consciously grasp and direct them do emotions become a force that serves you rather than destroys you. Prometheus did not bring fire so humans would avoid or depend on it, but so they would use it consciously, and that is the only way you can turn emotion into real strength. The master does not need to prove that he feels nothing. On the contrary, he feels fully, but is not pulled off center. He is like one who holds the power of choice, knowing when to be decisive, when to remain calm, when to be clear-minded. His character is not driven by automatic reactions, but shaped by conscious decisions. And it is this self-command that creates genuine respect. Others see in you a stable, trustworthy inner foundation. From here, we can draw a definitive conclusion. You do not need to kill emotion. You need to master its process of transformation. You do not need to become cold. You need to be solid enough not to collapse under emotion. When you achieve this, you possess what modern people lack most: an inner axis, a solid structure capable of containing every emotional movement without breaking. The distinction between repression and mastery is the foundation of the entire journey ahead. For if you do not know whether you are destructively suppressing or properly training yourself, you will never know whether what is growing inside you is strength or decay. Number 3. The reactive human versus the acting human. But ask yourself this: if repression is not strength, then what makes a person solid enough to be respected in a world where instinctive reactions always precede words? Respect never comes from avoiding explosions. It comes from reaching a level of self-command where emotion becomes a tool you operate, not a burden you carry. And if you look closely, the people you admire most have never been those who feel nothing. They are those who feel deeply, yet know precisely when to act, when to stay silent, and when to turn emotion into momentum. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, "Become who you are. Not become a statue, but become someone awake enough not to be overthrown by his own inner world." I once heard the story of Elena, a single mother living in a quiet neighborhood. She did not look strong, easily moved, compassionate, soft-hearted. Everyone thought she was weak. But one night, when her teenage son came home after a fight, his face flushed, hands shaking, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled, the neighbors expected Elena to scream or break down. She did neither. She opened the door, looked at her son and said, "Come inside. Sit down. I'm here." No raised voice, no accusations. When the boy sat down, Elena did not force him to explain. She poured water, set it in front of him, then sat beside him in silence until his breathing steadied. Then she said only one sentence: "Speak when you're ready." The boy, who had been raging moments earlier, burst into tears, not from shame, but from safety. The next day, when neighbors asked why Elena did not react strongly, she replied, "If I lose control when he loses control, then who leads whom?" That strength was not instinct or luck. It has a clear biological foundation. The brain has two emotional response systems: the amygdala, instinctive reaction, and the prefrontal cortex, where reason and consequence evaluation reside. The amygdala reacts far faster than reason. That is why humans shout, slam doors, lose composure before thinking. But when you train the ability to observe yourself, to recognize anger is rising, but it is not time to act, you reclaim command from the amygdala and return leadership to the prefrontal cortex. This is not vague philosophy, it is biology. And the person who can rise above reflex to direct his response is the one who enters a higher version of himself. Nietzsche would call this the transition of a being no longer living under the pull of weak instinct. The most important point: mastering emotion is not suppression, but refusing to let emotion define your identity. The uncontrolled person acts as if anger is who he is. The repressed person acts as if emotion does not exist. But the master understands that emotion is a signal, not a definition, raw material, not destiny. When you grasp this, you see every situation differently. Criticism is no longer a threat, insult no longer a wound to honor, mistakes no longer proof of failure. Emotion becomes data, not chains. There is a powerful image in the Bible that illustrates this. Jesus is insulted, provoked, mocked during his trial. Yet he does not react as the crowd expects. He remains silent. But this is not the silence of weakness. It is the silence of a being not governed by offense. That immovability unsettles his enemies. They cannot read him. The uncontrolled person is predictable. The repressed person is brittle. The master forces the world to pause and wait to see what he will do. This is the deepest form of power, the ability not to react by instinct, but to respond by one's own sovereignty. Understand this. Respect is not born from being right, but from not being crushed by what unfolds inside you. When others see you standing firm while emotions rise, they immediately sense that you have an axis, a core, a foundation. They know you will not erupt childishly, exaggerate problems, or turn small issues into tragedies. They feel safe around you. And that sense of safety is the root of respect. Ultimately, people do not respect a fragile soul. They respect a load-bearing one. A soul that sees anger surging and still says, "Wait, let me see clearly." Such a person does not need to shout to be heard, slam tables to be noticed, or prove right and wrong. He enters the room, and his presence is enough. When you control your emotions, you no longer crawl on the ground of instinct. You stand upright. And those who still live by reaction will never understand that strength, but they will feel it, and they will respect it. From here, you can see clearly, mastering emotion does more than keep you from being looked down upon. It turns you into a point of stillness, a weighted force that makes others adjust their behavior around you. An axis, a silent power. That is why inner strength makes people wary, not because you are frightening, but because you are too solid for them to keep lying to themselves. If these ideas make you realize that the greatest opponent of your life was never the outside world, but the unconscious reactions you once obeyed, subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of rebuilding the inner axis with us. Not to seek comfort, but to go deeper into the truths Nietzsche wanted every courageous human being to face. Number 4. Loss of emotional control equals failure of the will to power. Will to power. And it is precisely from the moment you no longer act by reaction, but by choice, that a deeper truth reveals itself. The problem was never emotion, but which will is ruling your soul. Step into the layer Nietzsche cared about most, where emotion is no longer a moral issue, but a measure of inner value. Will to power in his philosophy is not the ambition to dominate others, but the ability to organize all living forces within you into a single direction. A strong human being is not one with fewer emotions, but one with a center large enough to make all emotions revolve around it. Therefore, loss of control is not the moment you shout. It is the moment the will inside you disappears. Nietzsche viewed the soul as a city. Instincts, memories, fears, desires, goals, all are mixed inhabitants. Only when there is a supreme inner authority, will to power, does that city operate in order. But when you explode in anger, panic, or fall apart, the issue is not how strong the emotion is. The issue is that there is no one ruling inside you. The city falls into civil war. Nietzsche warned in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "Your soul will be dead even before your body. Fear kills the soul." And when fear or weak instinct takes the throne, the soul collapses from within before the world even touches you. A person who loses emotional control is not overly emotional, but a person without inner structure. Nietzsche called them flat souls, beings torn apart by internal forces because there is no will large enough to unite them. They cannot rise because they have no center. They cannot decide because there is no decider within them. A small remark can bring them down not because they are weak, but because there is no internal order holding them upright. That is the failure of the will to power. Not that emotion defeats you, but that you have nothing to oppose it. Those who lose control often believe they are reacting to the world. But Nietzsche would state plainly, they are not reacting to the world. They are reacting to the unruled chaos within themselves. The world merely knocks on a place that was already unstable. A small insult does not create a wound. It only touches the spot where you never built a wall. Rejection does not break anyone. It only awakens the self-worth that was never fully formed. Pressure does not fracture a soul. It only peels off the mask of an inner world without architecture. The will to power fails when you live without direction, act without principles, react without a center, and allow any stimulus to dictate your state. You call it sensitivity. Nietzsche calls it a masterless soul. Imagine a bow. Without tension, the arrow cannot fly. If the string is too loose, all power leaks out before it can be aimed at a target. A person who loses emotional control functions the same way. All vital energy, anger, passion, fear, desire, is released randomly, without direction, without structure, without purpose. And such a soul is not dangerous because of emotional intensity. It is harmless precisely because it cannot concentrate its life force into anything meaningful. And Nietzsche always saw strong souls as beings capable of gathering all living force into a single current. And here is the most ruthless truth. You do not lose control because your emotions are too large. You lose control because your will is too small. Will to power does not demand repression. It demands that you become the architect of your inner world, the one who restores order so every part of you knows who is in command. When you have a center, a goal, an iron principle, an unshakable direction, emotions cannot derail you. Fire does not destroy a house when there is a forge. Water does not wash away a city when there is a dam. Instinct does not bring you down when you have the capacity to organize instinct. Emily, 26 years old, always believed she loved with her whole heart. But every time her boyfriend failed to reply to a message for a few hours, she fell into panic, sending repeated texts, calling non-stop, then crying because she believed she was about to be abandoned. One evening, when her boyfriend sent a very simple message, "I'm driving, let's talk when I get home," Emily collapsed. She threw her phone at the wall, rushed to the door, then sat on the floor crying uncontrollably. That time, her boyfriend did not get angry, but he stayed silent for a long time. Not because of the crying, but because he saw something more important. Emily was not reacting to the situation. She was reacting to an inner world that had never been organized. And in that moment, Emily understood what she had avoided her whole life. She was not wounded by others. She was being torn apart by her own masterless soul. Emily's lesson is a cold demonstration of Nietzsche's philosophy. Emotions do not destroy anyone. Inner disorder destroys human beings. Carve this into your mind. Strength is not born from extinguishing emotion, but from the ability to force it to submit to the direction you choose. Only when you step into the role of leader over yourself do emotions become allies of the will instead of rulers over you. Will to power begins the moment you see emotions as wild forces that must be tamed, not waves that drag you along. Instinct is not the enemy. Instinct is only dangerous when no one rules it. And inner authority, not performed calmness, is what separates the respected from those dragged through life. Number 5. The one who masters emotion becomes frightening in a very quiet way. From here, the journey is no longer vague. It becomes sharper, harsher, and more real, because from this moment on, every choice you make is no longer an unconscious reflex, but an expression of will. And precisely when you enter this territory, a strange effect begins to appear. The one who masters emotion becomes frightening in a very quiet way. That fear does not come from a cold face or a commanding voice. It is not open intimidation, nor the kind that makes others feel afraid. The strength of the self-mastered lies in the opposite. They do not react immediately. And that silence, a silence the hot-tempered cannot endure, the weak cannot understand, the anxious dare not face, causes the other side to lose initiative. You have seen this in life. When one person remains calm while everything else is chaotic, the atmosphere in the room changes. Loud voices lower themselves. Aggressors suddenly feel awkward. Those who like to dominate others through emotion begin to realize their game no longer works. Nietzsche wrote, "Silence is worse. All truths that are kept silent become poisonous." But he also understood another truth very clearly. The silence of someone who knows his strength is not retreat. It is a form of power that needs no display. Imagine a mountain. The mountain does not shake. It simply stands there, and that very firmness forces everything around it to adjust. Wind changes direction, clouds reshape, air currents bend to its height. A person who masters emotion carries the same effect. They do not need to win arguments, because their stability alone changes the structure of the space they enter. A very famous story illustrating this is that of Michelle Obama during the White House years. She faced countless attacks, distortions, and personal assaults from the media and political opponents. In an interview, a host asked how she could remain so calm, almost motionless, in the face of such attacks. Michelle replied, "If I react the way they want, I become them." In another speech, she said the line that echoed worldwide, "When they go low, we go high." And that composure gradually rendered all attacks on Michelle Obama ineffective. The media could not shake her. Opponents could not drag her down. The public respected her for a very concrete reason. Amid political storms, she was one of the few who did not allow anyone outside to determine her dignity or reactions. And that effect does not stop at calmness. It expands into a form of silent authority that others are forced to respond to. The second factor that creates the quiet power of emotional control is the ability to make others self-adjust their behavior around you. Beside such a person, you find yourself speaking more slowly, choosing words more carefully, listening more closely. Not because they threaten you, but because they generate an inner field in which haste feels crude, showiness feels excessive, and agitation feels out of place. This is one of the most subtle forms of power Nietzsche alluded to. Power does not come from imposing, but from causing others to adjust their rhythm to yours. The explosive person forces the world to chase his impulses. The self-mastered causes the world to slow down. One creates chaos, the other creates gravity. Try to recall the last time you saw someone remain composed in the face of insults, not forced smiles or suppression, but true composure, the composure of someone you could not shake. What did you feel then? If you are honest, you will find a trace of unease within yourself, not because they were frightening, but because they were too solid. When someone is that calm, you can no longer read them. And when you cannot read someone, you cannot manipulate them, impose on them, or force them to react the way you want. This very inability to control them creates the feeling of fear. But the real lesson of this section is not stay calm so others respect you. fake calm is quickly exposed. What matters here is this: those who master emotion become centers of gravity in every space they enter, because they are among the rare ones not yanked along by the world's chaotic rhythm. And that beautiful stillness makes others wary, respectful, slightly restrained, compelled to look back at themselves, not out of fear, but because instinct recognizes something higher. That is a kind of power no money can buy, no status can grant, no coercion can create. It comes only from training. It comes only from mastering yourself to the point where no one can manipulate you through emotion anymore. And when that happens, respect does not need to be demanded. It arrives on its own, like a shadow following form. If you feel the quiet strength of inner mastery, the strength that makes others adjust their rhythm when standing before you, leave the word steadfast in the comments as a commitment to yourself. A small affirmation, but the first step of a self, no longer letting others' emotions determine its worth. Number 6. Mastering emotion does not kill emotion. It turns you into an artist of yourself. You have passed through the deepest layers of self-mastery, understanding why the world despises those who lose control, distinguishing repression from mastery, seeing the will to power operate as a steel axis in the soul of the strong, and witnessing the quiet intimidation of those who remain inwardly steady amid chaos. But all of this is only the foundation. Nietzsche never stopped at calm, nor did he ever see non-reaction as the destination. He wanted you to go further, to a place where emotion is no longer a burden to overcome, but material you shape. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." This is not an invitation to flee chaos, but a master's command. Use that very chaos to create a higher self. Mastering emotion, for Nietzsche, does not mean eliminating it. It means transforming it into directed power, into art you carve into your life. Mastering emotion does not mean never feeling anger, fear, or sadness. It simply means knowing clearly what you are feeling, why you are feeling it, and how you want to use that emotion to achieve a purpose. Anger can help you decisively cut away what you have endured too long. Fear can make you prepare better instead of freezing. Sadness can call you back to what truly matters. When you handle emotion with intention, you are no longer led by it. You decide how it is used. This is exactly what Nietzsche meant when he called emotional mastery an art. You do not erase emotion. You choose how to use it in service of your strength. On a trip, I heard the story of Evelyn, the owner of a small cafe in Brooklyn. Outwardly, Evelyn did not look like a strong person. She was sensitive, prone to worry. But she possessed a quality that earned the respect of the entire community around her cafe. She knew exactly when emotion should step forward and when it needed to step aside. One day, an incident occurred. A customer spilled hot coffee on herself, panicked, and vented her anger at the staff. Everyone expected Evelyn to rush into apologies or defensive reactions. Instead, she stepped forward calmly and said, "I understand you're hurt and scared. Let me help you with first aid first. Right and wrong, we'll discuss later." The atmosphere immediately shifted. Evelyn neither denied the customer's emotion nor allowed another person's emotion to pull her into a vortex. When things settled, she reviewed the camera footage and resolved the matter fairly for both sides. An employee said, "She's not calm because she has no emotions. She's calm because she chooses how to use them. People respected Evelyn because she retained control of her inner world, never allowing any emotion to decide for her in critical moments. Neuroscience confirms what Nietzsche understood a century ago. The human brain cannot erase emotion. The amygdala always reacts milliseconds before reason, triggering fear, anger, defense. But the prefrontal cortex, where choice and evaluation reside, can regulate the intensity and direction of that reaction if trained. Research from Stanford University shows that humans do not control emotion by destroying it, but by redirecting its flow. Meditation, inner observation, or simply pausing before reacting all activate the rational brain and reduce instinctive dominance. You do not turn off emotion. You change who holds the steering wheel. And that is precisely the freedom Nietzsche spoke of. Not letting instinct drive you, but you driving instinct. Others respect you because they sense one thing. You neither repress nor collapse. You create. You turn inner chaos into something with form, with lines. You do not hide. You are not controlled by external stimuli. You choose the rhythm, the frequency, the energy you bring into any space, a conversation, a relationship, or your own life. And most importantly, others recognize this immediately. Respect is not born from you being rational, but from you living like someone who knows what he is doing. They respect those who turn emotion into material, not into chains. And here is the final truth, the truth Nietzsche wants you to face without blinking. You do not become strong by killing emotion. You become worthy of respect by becoming an artist of it. When you know how to choose color, rhythm, and timing, you step into another level of living, the level of those no longer governed by any storm. And once you stand at that height, respect does not need to be demanded. It appears like the faithful shadow of someone who has mastered himself. If you have come this far, you have touched the truth Nietzsche always forced humanity to face. You will never be respected if you cannot control your emotions. The world does not care whether you are right or wrong, kind or wounded. It reads only one signal. Can you stand firm before yourself? The explosive is dismissed. The repressed is quietly injured. Only the one who commands instinct is seen as a force. A mind that does not control emotion is easy to turn, easy to predict, easy to lead. And Nietzsche understood clearly. No one respects what is easy to control. But a mind that directs emotion instead of being swept along will make all weak instincts around it wary. You do not need to be loud to be strong. You only need to remain unshaken. That very unshakability creates a power that makes others adjust their rhythm to you. And here is the final point Nietzsche wants you to look at directly. Once you see the mechanism that causes respect to leave you, inner masterlessness, you cannot return to unconscious living as before. Before leaving the video, ask yourself, if you had to live many more years with your current level of emotional control, could you endure it? Or is it time to rebuild the inner axis? Because the truth is this: you are respected only when you are strong enough to control yourself.